Does anyone have any questions about anything?
Everything.
What questions?
What do you call that song?
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't really name the. I mean, I usually just call them. And that was one particular iteration of an ImproviStory. But
Where does it take you?
Where does it take me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of following. Like I always liken music to cooking. It's kind of like, okay, we're making something. We just want it to be delicious, but it's like we have to kind of taste it and figure out what does it need next. And that's always like the question is like, what do we need to add to it next? And that's not necessarily what I'm thinking of. I'm not thinking about what do I do next, because like the next thing is like, it kind of suggests itself as far as like what, it's almost like having a conversation. You don't have to think about, if you're having like a good conversation, you're not thinking about what am I going to say next, because then you're not listening to the other person, right? So the beautiful thing about this project, for the way I've kind of got it set up, is it feels similar to like the way it feels when I play with other people, like in a live band setting, where it's like I'm creating these different, obviously live samplings of what I'm playing live, but then that now is a thing. It's almost like if we're building like a structure or something like that, and we put down a block, and then we put down another block, and we put down another block, and depending on where you put those blocks, well, now that suggests other places you might put other blocks. And so, and then at the same time, you could always just say, well, forget those blocks, let's just like put more blocks over here and just wipe that off, And so there's all these different possibilities that are there, or like I said, in the cooking analogy, where it's like, does it need salt, or do we want to like maybe cook it longer, or do we want to add like this other thing, or do we want to make it sweeter? There's so many different things you could do, and so it's just a matter of like, for me, my aesthetic as a performer, as an improviser, as a composer, is to do something I haven't necessarily done before. Now, obviously, we're using, in Western music, we're using these 12 tones, essentially, of the chromatic scale, and so it's like, obviously, I'm going to play things I've played before, but I'm not trying to recreate something I've done before. It's just like speaking words, I'm not making up new words to speak to people. I want to have novel experiences interacting with other human beings, and therefore I will use words I've used before or phrases I've used before, but at the same time I'm not trying to say, well, let me make my conversation with Johnny feel the same as the conversation with Susie. That would be weird, So for me, creating this is like, every time we perform, it's like, okay, well, I'm playing this sound here now, and like now this is what like the texture feels like, this is what the space feels like, so here's how I will move through that, or here's how I will color that behind it. It's almost like I'm making like a picture or something like that, where it's like, okay, well, like now maybe I drew like a person in the foreground. It's like, okay, well, now I could like shade the background, or maybe I could put a house in the background. Like, what is the subject of the picture? You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like we're taking like a camera and we're zooming into like different scenes or something like that, where it's like, maybe we're zoomed in on this like little bug over here, but then we zoom out and it turns out it's like a table at a diner, and then it turns out, oh, we're in a prison or something like that, and now it's like, oh, whoa, that was unexpected. And so that's kind of like interesting to like where it could go, and so kind of allowing my mind to be free enough to say, where might this need to go next? And that's kind of the idea behind it, if that makes sense.
Yes.